Hey guys, tonight we talk about what would happen if you, a regular squishy earth dweller with lungs, fragile skin, and dreams, somehow found yourself on the surface of every single planet in our solar system, one by one. No spacesuit, no training, no Jeff Bezos rocket money. Just you, standing there, breathing, or trying to. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you like what I do here. And drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is. This helps me so much, and I'm very grateful for all of you who do this. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise. And let's begin with the obvious starting point. The planet you're currently trying to fall asleep on. Earth. Congratulations, you've already survived one planet. Take a bow. You're on a cosmic rock flying around a star at 30 kilometers per second. But sure, the Wi-Fi being a bit slow is the real tragedy of existence. Earth is the Goldilocks zone personified. It's not too hot, not too cold, and somehow has just the right cocktail of breathable air, liquid water, and gravity that doesn't squish your spine like a Pringles can under a truck. You've got birds, oceans, coffee, memes, and of course, Shrek, all the basic building blocks of life. But let's be real. If you tried to step foot on any other planet with nothing but your earthborn body and a positive attitude, things would unravel faster than a fart in a fan factory. Let's take a short stroll over to the closest planetary neighbour and your first real test of survival. Mercury. Ah yes, Mercury. The tiny nightmare marble closest to the sun. It's basically a cosmic frying pan with commitment issues. It has no atmosphere to speak of, which means no weather, no air, and nothing to protect you from the sun's full, unfiltered fury. Imagine standing on the surface with the sun glaring down at you from just over 57 million kilometres away, and somehow still feeling like you're inside a microwave that's been cursed by an angry god. Now, because there's no real atmosphere to hold in heat, Mercury has one of the biggest temperature swings in the solar system. During the day, temperatures can soar to 430 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt lead, burn your shoes, and toast your regrets. At night, however, it plummets to minus 180. So, from oven to freezer in just a few rotations. If that doesn't scream hostile work environment, I don't know what does. How long would you last? Let's be generous. Assuming you land on the daylight side, you'd probably die in about 2 seconds. First, you'd suffocate because, no atmosphere. Your lungs would empty themselves in a sad, squeaky puff, and your blood would start to boil due to the lack of pressure. Then you'd be cooked by radiation like a frozen pizza being blasted with gamma rays. Your skin might get a tan though, an extreme, permanent, fully cremated kind of tan, but maybe you got lucky and landed on the night side. In that case, you'd freeze solid instead. Still dead, still within seconds. So basically Mercury is like choosing between being flambéed or flash frozen. Bon appetit. Let's move on to someone we all know and pretend to like. Venus. Ah, Venus. She looks beautiful from afar. Cloudy. Covered in golden light. But don't be fooled. She's basically the prom queen of hell. Beneath those thick clouds is an atmosphere made almost entirely of carbon dioxide. Add some sulfuric acid rain and a pressure so high it would crush a submarine, and you've got yourself a death trap wrapped in romance. Stepping onto Venus is like walking into a steam room that hates you personally. The temperature sits around 475 degrees Celsius. Yes, hotter than Mercury. Why? Because Venus's thick atmosphere traps heat like a greenhouse made of rage. You wouldn't even get to admire the view. The pressure would crush your lungs before you could say help, and the air would corrode your skin like you fell into a vat of acid-laced cola. Your survival time on Venus? Less than 1 second. Seriously, you wouldn't even finish blinking. You'd be vaporized and flattened into a vaguely human-shaped pile of cautionary tale. In short, don't go to Venus. She's not worth it. Let her toxic energy stay in space. Okay, let's breathe. You're doing well. Or maybe not breathing, depending on where you are in the solar system right now. But we're about to head somewhere new. Somewhere that's been in all the sci-fi movies, books, billionaire plans, and questionable tech bro PowerPoint presentations. Yep, it's time for Mars. Let's pretend you've just been teleported there. No warning, no suit, just vibes. The first thing you'd notice is how underwhelmingly brown everything is. It's dusty, rocky, quiet. Kind of like Arizona, but with 100% more lethal radiation and a total lack of oxygen. Mars is cold, about minus 60 degrees Celsius on average. That's a kind of cold that makes your teeth hurt just thinking about it. But it's not just the cold that's the problem. Mars has only about 1% the atmospheric pressure of Earth. That means no breathable air, and the pressure is so low that your blood would boil, even at freezing temperatures. Fun! You'd last maybe 30 seconds before unconsciousness set in, and a couple of minutes before it's game over. If that sounds like a win compared to Venus, sure, it's a high score. But unlike Venus, Mars is almost survivable. In a, if you lived inside a highly advanced, tightly sealed can forever sort of way. It's the kind of place humanity could live, eventually, if we threw enough money, engineering, and wishful thinking at it. But we'd need a few things, like habitats that can hold pressure, systems to produce oxygen and recycle water, maybe some solar panels and a Netflix subscription. Oh, and a lot of therapy, because you'll be stuck in a rusty dust bowl millions of kilometres from everything you've ever loved, trying to grow potatoes in your own poop like Matt Damon. Still, Mars is kind of romantic. Not in a candlelight dinner sort of way, but in a maybe we can build something here kind of way. It's a fixer-upper, the kind of place where you don't just move in, you terraform. Slowly, painfully, over centuries. Because that's what humans do. We take barren rocks and try to convince them to love us. Alright, drift off now. Picture the red dust swirling gently around your space boots. You're standing on an alien desert beneath a soft pink sky, watching twin moons drift across the horizon like slow, sleepy eyes. And just as you're about to take your next breath, you wake up in free fall. It's quiet, peaceful. You're floating in the great in-between. Mars is shrinking behind you like a red marble. And ahead lies the biggest planet in the solar system. Big, beautiful, terrifying Jupiter. The space equivalent of that one guy who goes to the gym twice a day and bench presses cars for fun. Let's set the scene. You've now arrived at Jupiter. Or at least you think you have. There's just one problem. Jupiter doesn't have a surface. At least not in the way your Earth-trained brain expects. It's made almost entirely of gas, with maybe a small rocky core hiding somewhere in the middle, like a secret no one's ever seen. If you tried to land on it, you'd just fall. And fall. And fall. Forever. It's less like stepping onto a planet and more like diving into a planetary milkshake that's 11 times the size of Earth and constantly trying to kill you. The moment you enter Jupiter's upper atmosphere, the pressure begins to rise. Not emotionally, literally. Every second you fall deeper, the gas gets thicker, denser, hotter. The pressure starts to crush you, slow and unrelenting. Like a giant hand squeezing a marshmallow. You'd black out within moments, your body not built for soup with an attitude problem. And the radiation. Oh, the radiation. Jupiter's magnetic field is about 20,000 times stronger than Earth's. That sounds cool until you realise that walking through it would be like getting microwaved by an angry sun god. Without shielding, you'd absorb a lethal dose of radiation faster than you can say, this was a bad idea. Your survival time? Maybe 3 seconds at best. Longer if you're lucky. Or unlucky. Depends on how you feel about being vaporised versus being compressed into a people paste by alien gas layers. Now if, for some reason, you were observing Jupiter from the relative safety of orbit, and by safety, I mean you're in a high-tech spacecraft equipped with radiation shielding and more gadgets than a Bond villain, then you could enjoy the view. The Great Red Spot, for example. A storm that's been raging for at least 400 years. That's longer than most countries have existed. It's basically a hurricane the size of 2 Earths that refuses to die. You could stare at it, watch the swirling clouds, maybe feel a little insignificant. You know, fun space things. Jupiter's also got an entourage. Over 90 moons, including Europa, which people really need to start talking about more. Because if there's anywhere else in the solar system where life might be hiding, Europa's the place. It's got a smooth, icy surface and a giant salty ocean underneath. Think Antarctica, but way more isolated and without the penguins. If anything's living there, it's probably something weird, squishy and glowing. But back to you, because you don't have time to be admiring moons. You're falling. Deeper, denser, hotter. Every second adds another layer of pressure to your body. Eventually, Atoms start getting crushed into exotic matter, and your concept of what a bad day is gets permanently redefined. Still, there's something poetic about Jupiter. It's a reminder that not everything big and beautiful wants to be your friend. Some things just want to exist and crush you quietly while spinning in space at 12 kilometers per second. Now let's escape that blender of gas and horror and head to its sibling, Saturn. Ah, Saturn, the aesthetic one. The show-off. It's basically the influencer of the solar system. All rings, no personality. But don't let the glamorous look fool you. Saturn is just as lethal as Jupiter. If not more so, because at least Jupiter makes it obvious it's trying to kill you. Approaching Saturn, you'd first be greeted by its iconic rings. They look solid, like you could run across them in slow motion while a dramatic soundtrack plays. But nope, they're actually made of billions of ice particles, some no bigger than snowflakes, others the size of small houses. If you tried to fly through them without the right trajectory, your ship would get pelted by frozen rocks and shredded like space confetti. A beautiful death, but still a death. And like Jupiter, Saturn has no solid surface. If you jumped in, you'd just start falling. Again. But this time the descent is even slower and eerier. Saturn is the least dense planet in the solar system, so light it could float in water if you had an ocean big enough. You'd sink through layers of cold hydrogen and helium, your surroundings getting darker and thicker until the pressure crushed every bone in your body, like you were a Capri Sun being stepped on by a god. The survival time here is about the same as Jupiter. A few seconds, maybe 10 if you're built different. But again, it depends on how long you want to experience the crushing, existential dread before you become soup. Saturn also has moons. A lot of them. Over 140 depending on who's counting. One of the most interesting is Titan. It's bigger than Mercury and has a thick nitrogen-rich atmosphere, lakes of methane, and a very real possibility that life, in some absurd alien form, could exist there. If Mars is our hopeful fixer-upper, Titan is the weird Airbnb we might crash at if Earth ever evicts us. You couldn't breathe the air, and it's cold enough to flash freeze your eyebrows, but at least you wouldn't be immediately squashed. That's progress. Imagine standing there, on the surface of Titan. Your breath fogs up your helmet as you look out over a lake made of liquid methane. The sky is orange, the air thick. There's a quiet hum in the distance. Or maybe it's just your own thoughts echoing off your skull. You don't know. You're light years from your Wi-Fi password, and there's no one around to ask why everything smells faintly like barbecue gas. Let yourself drift in that scene. Let the methane wind carry you across the alien shore. You're safe. Cold, but safe. The danger feels distant, your heartbeat slows, your mind drifts. And just before you fall asleep completely, something starts to pull you again. Up, away. The journey isn't over. You awaken again, this time gently. It's colder now, vastly colder. Space feels quieter out here, like even the universe itself is trying to whisper you back to sleep. Ahead of you is Uranus, spinning lazily on its side, like it's permanently trying to nap through its responsibilities. Relatable. Let's talk about Uranus. First, yes, it's pronounced Uranus. But we all know what you're really thinking. So let's just get the childish giggle out of the way now. Because after this planet's about to ruin your day, it won't be funny anymore. Uranus is an ice giant. He. Which sounds like something from a fantasy novel. But here it just means that instead of being mostly hydrogen and helium like Jupiter and Saturn, it's also packed with water, ammonia, and methane. Basically the ingredients list of your average cleaning product. Delicious. From orbit, it's stunning. A soft blue-green ball floating serenely in the dark. No big storms like Jupiter, no fancy rings like Saturn. Just a simple frosty orb, quietly ignoring everyone. But it hides horrors beneath that pastel surface. If you were to fall into Uranus, you'd pass through its upper atmosphere. Mostly hydrogen. Nothing you can breathe, of course, unless your lungs recently decided to become hydrogen compatible. Which I doubt. The temperatures start low. Very low. It's one of the coldest places in the solar system, with the outer clouds reaching minus 224 degrees Celsius. That's colder than your ex's heart and most online comment sections. So here's what happens. The moment you touch the atmosphere, your lungs seize up. You can't breathe. Because there's no oxygen, your skin starts to freeze almost instantly, cracking like a dropped popsicle. Then the pressure begins. Slowly at first, like a hug from a giant wearing mittens made of lead. And it only gets worse from there. As you descend, you'd pass through clouds of hydrogen sulfide. That's the gas that smells like rotten eggs. So yes, if you could somehow survive long enough to register it, Uranus would literally smell like farts. The memes were right, but don't get too excited. You won't live long enough to care. Once again, there's no surface to land on. Just deeper and deeper layers of pressurized gas until you're squeezed into irrelevance. Your survival time? Maybe 2 to 3 seconds. Slightly longer than on Jupiter, but only because Uranus is a bit more chill, both literally and metaphorically. So what's the point of Uranus, really? Well, scientists think it's interesting because it's tilted on its side, nearly 98 degrees. That means it basically rolls around the sun rather than spinning like a top. No one really knows why. Maybe it got hit by something massive billions of years ago. Maybe it's just quirky. Either way, one season on Uranus lasts about 21 Earth years. Imagine a single winter that drags on for 2 decades. Actually, that's just Canada. Now we drift further. The last big planet. The one that sounds like a god and looks like a stormy sea. Neptune. Neptune is beautiful. A deep, rich blue that looks like it was painted by a moody artist who was very into oceans and sadness. It's the farthest known planet from the sun, and out here, everything feels slow. Even light takes over 4 hours to reach this place. It's so far that the sun is barely more than a bright star in the distance, offering little warmth and even less hope. You fall into Neptune's atmosphere. There's no surface. Again, I hope you're noticing the pattern. You just sink, slowly, through clouds made of hydrogen, helium, and methane. Temperatures at the top are bitterly cold, but as you fall, the pressure rises rapidly. Your body is crushed by forces you can't even fathom. If you brought a pressure gauge, it would scream and explode before you had time to say, "What does this button do?" But Neptune has a claim to fame. It has the fastest winds in the entire solar system, over 2,000 kilometers per hour. That's faster than bullets. If you somehow landed in one of these jet streams, you wouldn't be tossed around. You'd be shredded, reduced to high-speed meat confetti. The weather here isn't just bad, it's malicious. Let's talk numbers. You'd lose consciousness in less than 15 seconds. Fully dead by minute 1. Slightly better than Jupiter, which feels like a win at this point. Go you. But Neptune, like Uranus, has some strange moons. Triton, for example. It orbits backward, in the opposite direction of Neptune's rotation. This tells us it probably didn't originate with Neptune. It was captured, like a cosmic stray dog that decided to stick around. Triton is icy, cracked, and possibly has a subsurface ocean. Scientists are very excited about it, which is a scientific way of saying maybe, just maybe, aliens. Triton even has geysers, actual plumes of nitrogen gas shooting into space. That's right, you're in the most distant part of the solar system, and it's still farting at you. Still. Imagine standing there, on the icy plains of Triton. Everything is quiet. The stars are crisp and infinite. You look up at Neptune, a massive blue disk hanging low in the sky. It pulses slightly, like it knows you're watching. Your breath fogs your visor, your heart slows. There is no noise, no wind, no life, just peace. But we're not done. Now comes the question no one asked, but everyone secretly wants answered. What about Pluto? Yes, Pluto, the ex-planet, the underdog, the one we all emotionally adopted when scientists decided to demote it. It's not technically a planet anymore, but who cares? We're visiting it anyway. Pluto is small, like really small. About 2/3 the width of Earth's moon. It's made of rock and ice and sadness. The surface is cold enough to freeze nitrogen, and the atmosphere is so thin it can't even decide whether to exist or not. It comes and goes depending on the temperature. Seasonal indecisiveness at its finest. If you stepped out onto Pluto, you'd experience true silence. It's so far from everything that even your own thoughts feel like they echo. The sky is dark, not because it's night, but because the sun is just a distant dot, barely more than a bright speck. The landscape is bizarre. Icy mountains, smooth plains of frozen methane, cracks and ridges like scars on a forgotten face. Could you survive? Weirdly enough, yes. For a moment, there's very little gravity, only about 6% of Earth's, and the pressure is basically zero. You'd need a suit to breathe and not freeze into a popsicle statue, but if you had one, you could stand here for a few minutes. Maybe take a walk, reflect, cry a little. There's something haunting about Pluto. It's so far from everything, and yet still caught in the gravity of the sun. A reminder that even outcasts are still part of the system. So drift off now. Imagine standing there, alone, but not lonely, surrounded by the infinite quiet of space, your breath slow, your heart steady. You've been to every major world in the solar system, and somehow you're still here. But wait, there's more. Because now we're going to the places beyond planets. The moons, the comets, the asteroids, the places no one dreams about. But maybe they should. The silence is different now. It's no longer just quiet, it's ancient. You're floating past the planets, deeper into the outer solar system, into regions where sunlight takes hours to arrive and barely bothers showing up at all. The kind of places that sound like footnotes in a textbook, but hold stories older than Earth itself. Let's start with Europa, one of Jupiter's many moons. But not just any moon. This one's special. Imagine you're standing on a flat sheet of cracked ice that stretches in every direction. The surface beneath your feet is smooth, pale, and covered in long, jagged lines. It looks like someone took a planet and ran a giant ice skate over it. Beneath that frozen crust, a global ocean. Salt water, more of it than all the oceans on Earth combined, and it's kept warm by the gravitational tug-of-war with Jupiter, which kneads the moon like dough, generating heat deep below. Which means there's liquid water. In space, right under your feet. Now, you can't breathe here, obviously, and it's a crisp minus 160 degrees Celsius. The radiation from Jupiter is intense enough to turn your DNA into abstract art. But you wouldn't care. You'd be too busy staring at the stars above, reflected perfectly on the icy plain, like a mirror laid out by the universe itself. And below? Who knows what swims in those alien depths? Something with eyes that glow. Or maybe no eyes at all. Just instincts. Quiet. Watching. Waiting. You'd last a minute or two in a suit. Less if you took it off. But in that short time you'd see something few ever dream of. And you'd feel small. Wonderfully, gloriously small. Next stop. Enceladus. This one's a moon of Saturn. A tiny one. Just 500 kilometres across. But don't let its size fool you. Enceladus is wild. This place shoots giant plumes of water vapour out of its south pole. Literal geysers, blasting into space, leaving trails hundreds of kilometres long. If you flew by in a ship, you could collect those plumes, melt the ice, and find ingredients, organic compounds, the stuff life is made of. If Europa is the quiet, brooding artist, Enceladus is the enthusiastic lab assistant throwing samples in your face and screaming, "Do something with this." Standing on Enceladus, you'd feel light. Gravity here is barely noticeable. You could hop across the entire moon with just a little push, like you're starring in the weirdest Olympic event ever. The stars would shimmer above you, and if you stood at the southern pole, you might even witness one of those geysers up close, a jet of water soaring into space, lit by distant sunlight like a frozen firework. You wouldn't survive long, of course. It's cold, it's airless, and the surface is like a skating rink designed by someone with a personal vendetta against traction. But for a fleeting moment, it would feel magical. Let's move on to something a bit less scenic, but far more chaotic. The asteroid belt. This is the region between Mars and Jupiter, where most people imagine you'd have to expertly weave between tumbling rocks like you're in a 1980s sci-fi chase scene. In reality, the asteroids are so far apart, you could fly through the belt and never even see one. It's like walking through an empty car park and telling people you almost got run over. Still, the asteroids themselves are fascinating. Let's say you land on Ceres, the largest object in the belt. Technically a dwarf planet. Ceres is round, icy, and sort of mysterious. It has bright spots on its surface that turned out to be deposits of salt. So yes, Ceres literally sparkles. Like it's trying out for a role in a space-themed disco movie. You weigh very little here. A jump could launch you dozens of feet into the air. If you screamed, there'd be no echo. Just you, floating slightly above the surface, surrounded by starlight and silence. Now let's talk about comets. These are the solar system's frozen time capsules. Leftovers from the early days. Dirty snowballs flung into long looping orbits around the sun. Most of the time they're quiet, invisible. But when they get close to the sun, they wake up. You might have seen pictures. A bright dot with a glowing tail stretching across the sky. That tail is not smoke. It's ice and dust being blasted off by sunlight, forming a trail millions of kilometres long. It's stunning. But up close, a comet is strange, jagged, dark, covered in ancient ices and black dust. It smells faintly like rotten eggs and almonds, a charming combination of ammonia and hydrogen cyanide. Let's say you land on one. It would be like standing on a floating mountain of stale freezer burn. The ground would crumble underfoot. The gravity is so low that one wrong step and you're gently drifting into space like a balloon with poor decision-making skills. You wouldn't die instantly unless you accidentally stepped into a sunlit vent that promptly exploded into gas and flung you into the void. But you wouldn't last long either. It's too cold, too quiet, too alone. The kind of place that makes your thoughts louder just to fill the silence. Now, as we drift past the edge of the solar system, things get weird. We reach a place called the Kuiper Belt. This is where Pluto lives, along with thousands of other icy rocks. It's cold, dark, but somehow crowded. These objects are the crumbs left over from the solar system's formation. Frozen fossils orbiting a sun they can barely see anymore. And beyond that, the Oort cloud. No one's ever seen it. It's too far. But scientists are pretty sure it's there. A vast shell of icy bodies surrounding our solar system like a bubble of ghostly marbles. If the solar system were a city, the Oort cloud would be the distant suburbs no one visits, but everyone blames for the weird weather. You can't really go there. It's too far, too empty. It would take thousands of years to reach even the nearest part. But it's beautiful to think about. An invisible boundary. A halo of frozen possibility. And maybe, just maybe, one day we'll visit. For now, though, you're drifting. Slowly. Silently. Past frozen moons and ancient rocks. Past everything you've known. And somewhere ahead, a bright dot. Getting closer. It's not a planet. It's not even in our solar system. It's a star. You're still floating. But now even the sun looks small. It's behind you. Distant, dim. Almost just another star in a sea of billions. You're outside the solar system now. In the true void. Congratulations. You've entered interstellar space. A place so empty it makes the Australian outback look like Times Square on New Year's Eve. Out here nothing happens quickly. In fact, almost nothing happens at all. It's not cold in the usual sense. It's not hot either. It's just empty. The particles are so sparse that they barely touch each other. This is space's version of a no-contact sport. Your temperature would actually be based on what radiation you absorb, not air temperature. Because, spoiler alert, there is no air. You're floating in the same region where the Voyager probes now wander. Remember those? Voyager 1 and 2? We launched them back in the 1970s with golden records attached, literal LPs with instructions on how to play music, plus greetings from Earth in 55 languages, and a selection of whale songs because apparently aliens need a Spotify sample before invading. These spacecraft are still out there, still pinging us occasionally, like long-lost relatives who only check in on birthdays. They've entered interstellar space, slowly coasting into forever. If you could catch up to one, which you can't, by the way, unless your dreams also involve breaking the laws of physics, you could touch it. It would be cold, old, covered in decades of cosmic dust, and still holding that message in a bottle from Earth, hoping someone, somewhere, gives a damn. Now out here, let's be honest, your odds of survival are still zero. You're not magically better off now that you're beyond Pluto. There's still no air, no warmth, and no TikTok to keep you company. Just radiation, emptiness, and the creeping realization that space doesn't care about your need for comfort. Or snacks. But the beauty, oh the beauty. Out here the stars don't twinkle. They shine like hard frozen diamonds. The Milky Way isn't a vague smear of light. It's a river of stars stretching across the sky, thick and bright and impossibly detailed. You could stare at it for hours, or at least until your suit runs out of oxygen, which, to be fair, will be soon. Let's pause here. Float with me. Let the silence wrap around you like a weighted blanket. There's no sound, no wind, no pressure. Just the occasional flicker of light from distant stars. You're a mote of dust in a sea of infinity. And somehow that feels peaceful. Liberating even. Now eventually your body would cool, your air would run out, your systems would fail. But unlike the planets, the death here is slow, gentle. It doesn't crush or burn or freeze you violently. It just lets you go. Like a candle slowly flickering out in a room that never had walls to begin with. And that's the strange thing. In this endless void, it's easier to imagine eternity. There's no calendar, no clocks, just time, stretched so thin you can barely feel it anymore. But if your drifting body were to keep going, endlessly pulled forward by inertia and the quiet laws of physics, you might one day pass through the outer halo of another star system. It could take tens of thousands of years, or longer. And maybe, just maybe, something out there would notice you. An alien civilization, a passing probe, a ship full of creatures with more tentacles than patience. And they'd see you, this frozen human popsicle, with a confused expression, and think, what was this creature doing? And maybe they'd dig through your suit, find a name tag, find traces of where you came from, the chemical signature of Earth, or better yet, your Spotify history. And they'd hear the Matt Damon potato monologue from The Martian and say, okay, we get it. These beings were weird, but they had charm. But let's bring things back. You're not going to drift forever, because now I want you to imagine a world not in our solar system. Something different, something bizarre, an exoplanet. Let's say you suddenly arrive at Kepler 186f. It's real, it's out there, around 500 light years away. Scientists think it could be Earth-like. It's in the habitable zone of its star, which is a fancy way of saying it's not boiling or frozen. Always a plus. Landing on Kepler 186f would feel familiar, sort of. Gravity's a little different. The sky might be a strange shade. The sun, not our sun, but a red dwarf hangs lower, dimmer, cooler. The light is softer, redder. Shadows stretch differently. The plants, if there are any, aren't green. They might be purple, absorbing light in different wavelengths. You take a step. The ground is solid. Not rock exactly, something else. Your suit tells you there's oxygen. Not a lot, but enough. You risk taking off your helmet. A bold move. It's risky. But hey, at this point your life is basically an elaborate science fair experiment anyway. The air is crisp, thin, tastes like cold iron and rain. You exhale slowly. Something stirs in the distance. Maybe wind, maybe life. And in that moment you realise you're the first human to step here, to breathe this alien air, to look up at an unfamiliar sky and say, wow, I have no idea what I'm looking at, but I kind of like it. And maybe that's the point of all of this. Not to survive on every planet. Not to conquer them. Not to build drive-thrus on Mars or condos on Titan. But just to wonder. To ask what's out there. To stare into the void and feel something stir. Because in the end, space doesn't care if you last 2 seconds or 2 centuries. But you do, and that's enough. Sleep well, dream big, and if a passing alien hears whale songs tonight, just smile. That was us. You've left behind the stars you're familiar with. The ones you maybe saw in childhood, camping trips or through telescopes you swore you'd use more. Out here, the rules start bending. You're not in Kansas anymore. You're not even in the Milky Way's more respectable neighbourhoods. Welcome to the realm of exoplanets. Distant, weird, and absolutely uninterested in your ability to survive. Let's begin with HD 199733b. Terrible name, sounds like a printer model. But don't let that fool you. This planet is famous for being homicidal. First of all, it rains glass, sideways. Let that image settle in. Rains glass, sideways. Winds whip through the atmosphere at over 8,000 kilometers per hour. That's faster than a speeding bullet. Actually, it's faster than most missiles. You wouldn't just be cut, you'd be sandblasted into a fine mist. The planet itself is a deep cobalt blue. Beautiful, serene, misleading. That colour? It's caused by silicate particles in the atmosphere scattering blue light, which is a fancy way of saying you're looking at a deadly blender painted like the ocean. If you teleported here, survival time wouldn't be measured in seconds. It would be measured in syllables. You wouldn't even get to say glass rain before becoming a cautionary tale. But let's get weirder. Next stop, 55 Cancri E. This planet is close. Not to us, to its star. It orbits so tightly that a year there lasts just 18 hours. Meaning if you lived here, you'd have a birthday every day. Which sounds fun until you realise you'd also die every day. So, maybe not. The surface? It's probably covered in lava. Some scientists think it might even be made mostly of carbon. And under the right conditions, diamonds. Yep, this could literally be a planet with a diamond crust. But before you get excited about mining rights and building a luxury resort, just remember the surface temperature is about 2,000 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than molten steel. You wouldn't survive long enough to admire the sparkle. You'd vaporise before your brain could even process that you're now technically part of a luxury accessory. Alright, let's take a breather, you deserve it. No more death planets. Let's go somewhere calmer. Let's visit Kepler 22b. It's in the habitable zone of a sun-like star. Scientists think it might have oceans, maybe even land. It's roughly twice the size of Earth, so gravity would be a bit stronger. Not enough to crush you, but enough that every step feels like you're carrying one extra bad decision from last week. Now, if Kepler 22b has an atmosphere, a big if, it might even be breathable. You'd still need a suit, just in case. But this is one of those rare, maybe, if you stretch the definition of habitable and squint hard enough, kind of worlds. You walk across the landscape. The sky is a muted teal. The clouds hang low and slow, like they're thinking about what kind of mood they want to be in. The ground feels soft, springy, like moss but not. There's a scent in the air, something floral or chemical, or imaginary. It's alien, but it's peaceful. You feel the pull of gravity tugging at your feet. Not aggressively, just firmly, like a polite bouncer reminding you that this place isn't really for you. But you walk anyway, and it's quiet. No buzzing phones, no background traffic, no notifications, just the sound of your breath and the soft crunch of the surface beneath you. Now let's get a little dramatic. You knew it was coming. Meet WASP 12b. This planet is being eaten, not by black holes or rogue space squirrels, but by its own star. WASP 12b is so close to its star that it's being pulled apart, slowly, tragically, like a muffin with low structural integrity. The heat here is beyond comprehension, over 2,500 degrees Celsius. Its atmosphere is being stripped away. Scientists estimate it only has about 10 million years left before it's gone completely, which sounds like a long time until you remember Earth has been around for 4.5 billion years. So this planet, it's basically in hospice care. If you landed here, again, if you were the kind of person who thought being on fire was a valid lifestyle choice, you'd die instantly. There's no surface, no air, just swirling gas, heat and sadness. Still, there's a strange beauty in it. A planet too close to its star, burning brightly, doomed, but glorious. Kind of like a metaphor for human ambition, if you think about it. Now, how about something that'll actually lull you back towards sleep? Let's take you to rogue planets. These are planets with no star. That's right, they don't orbit anything. They just drift alone through interstellar space. No sunrise, no sunset, just endless eternal night. Imagine standing on one. The ground is solid, icy. You see nothing but blackness in every direction. There's no sky glow, no ambient light. Just you and the stars above, burning quietly like distant memories. These rogue planets are cold, very cold. But surprisingly, some of them might still have internal heat. Maybe even oceans beneath thick crusts. Heated by radioactive decay or tidal forces long since forgotten. You wouldn't survive. Of course not, but if you could, it would be the most peaceful place in existence. There are no storms here, no fire, no radiation belts, just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full, like the whole universe paused for a moment to exhale. Let yourself imagine that. Standing on a nameless world, drifting through the stars. No schedule, no destination, just existence. You're not running from anything, you're not running toward anything. You're just here, and that's enough. Let's say humanity, in its infinite optimism and general habit of ignoring warning labels, decides it's time to pack up Earth and go find a new place to live. Mars is the obvious candidate. But let's not rush. First, let's look at what it actually takes to live on a planet. Spoiler alert, a lot. Start with gravity. On Earth, you weigh what you weigh. Unless you're lying to your driver's license, in which case, fine, we'll go with your best self. Now imagine living on a planet where gravity is twice as strong. That's what you get on a super Earth like Kepler 20b or Gliese 5H1c. You try to get out of bed. It feels like someone stacked 3 versions of you on top of your actual body. Brushing your teeth is a workout. Your joints are screaming. Your internal organs are now a tightly packed party of fluids struggling to remember where they belong. You go for a walk and your leg muscles file for emotional compensation. Now reverse that. A planet with low gravity, like the Moon or Mars. At first it's fun. You jump higher, run faster, feel lighter. But over time, your muscles start to atrophy, your bones lose density, your heart gets lazy because it doesn't have to fight gravity. You become the space version of a sad noodle. A strong breeze could knock you over. If you're lucky, there are no breezes. If you're unlucky, it's Mars and the breezes are carrying razor-sharp dust. Now let's talk atmosphere. Most of these planets don't have one. Or if they do, it's the kind that turns your lungs into spicy jelly. On Earth, we've got this lovely mix of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and just enough carbon dioxide to keep the plants from staging a rebellion. But on other planets, you might be inhaling methane, sulfur dioxide, ammonia, the things you usually see in warning labels or cartoon villain lairs. Even if you could breathe, you still need pressure. Without enough atmospheric pressure, the water in your body starts to boil. Yes, boil. At room temperature. That's how science works. Sorry. So what do? We build domes. Big ones. Pressurized, oxygenated, climate-controlled domes. On Mars, this would be your only real option. The atmosphere there is just 1% the thickness of Earth's. Basically, it's like trying to breathe at the top of Mount Everest, but worse. And you're also being zapped by radiation because the planet said, sorry, no magnetic field today. Inside these domes, everything has to be recycled. Air, water, heat, even waste. Yes, that waste. If you've seen The Martian, you know where this is going. Your lunch is growing in yesterday's regrets. Welcome to space. You'll need power. A lot of it. Solar panels work on Mars, but the dust storms can last months. So maybe throw in a nuclear reactor or two, just to keep the lights on and your oxygen flowing. Nothing says home sweet home like sleeping 3 meters from a miniature sun in a concrete box. And food. Don't forget food. You can't rely on regular supply missions. So you farm, indoors, under artificial lights, in hydroponic trays. Or, if you really want to feel like a pioneer, in regolith, the fancy word for Martian dirt, after you treat it to remove all the chemicals that would normally kill your crops and also you. Space potatoes again? Don't worry, we'll genetically modify the hell out of them. Gluten-free, oxygen-releasing, maybe even spicy, whatever keeps morale up. Let's say you've survived the physical side. What about the mental? You're living in a tin can, far from Earth, with the same group of people, every day, for years. There's no nature, no breeze, no smells that aren't recycled air, plastic, or whatever your bunkmate had for dinner. The sunsets are beautiful, but you're not going outside. Ever. Social dynamics? Fragile. One passive-aggressive comment during the water filtration rotation, and boom, the greenhouse mysteriously malfunctions. You're now growing lettuce in your tears. Humans were built for Earth, for trees and air and long walks and yelling at clouds. Strip that away and we become weird, twitchy, a bit too invested in the plot lines of imaginary TV shows we make up just to cope. But here's the thing. we'd still go. And we'd stay. Because we're stubborn. Because the idea of having a second home, even one that's trying to kill us, is somehow better than just sitting still. Mars isn't just a backup plan. It's a statement. A galactic "we made it." Even if making it means constantly checking for radiation burns and eating hydroponic kale for breakfast. Now zoom out. Think of a civilization that mastered this, that built on Mars, then Titan, then maybe Europa. That learned to terraform, to create Earth-like bubbles on dead rocks, slowly, like ants building a nest on a concrete slab. You'd still need ships, massive ones, maybe rotating to create artificial gravity, equipped with cryo-sleep, AI caretakers, and onboard entertainment that's at least better than airplane Wi-Fi. These ships would travel for generations, people born, raised, and buried in metal tubes between the stars. And what happens when they do arrive? They look around, measure the radiation, check the soil, taste the air, and build again. Domes, reactors, farms, stories. They'll tell their kids about Earth, not as home, but as myth. A blue marble where it all began, with oceans, trees, and annoying birds that scream at sunrise. And one day those kids will stand on an alien world, watching an alien sunset, and wonder why anyone ever left a place like that. Let yourself drift into that future. You're lying in a habitat dome. There's the soft hum of life support. Artificial wind rustles engineered leaves overhead. Gravity feels just right. Outside the curved window, a second moon is rising. You're far from home. But you're also home, and that is enough. You're floating again. Back outside the domes, the ships, the simulations, alone with the stars. Just you and the vast, uncaring canvas of the universe. And as you drift, you begin to wonder, not if you could survive another planet, but why? Why bother? Let's say you made it. You've got the dome, the water recyclers, the third-generation space kale, the 3D printed dog named Bark 9000. You've checked all the boxes. You are officially a space resident. But what's left? You've got survival. Congratulations. But now you need purpose. Because it turns out living in a metal box on a planet with no breathable atmosphere gets old. Fast. Humans are good at adapting, yes, but we're also experts at getting bored, even in space. So we bring culture, stories, games, songs. Probably memes, definitely memes. We teach kids Earth history, tell them about oceans even though they've never seen one. We show them pictures of forests and beaches and clouds and they ask, why is the sky blue? And we have to explain light scattering and nitrogen, when really we just want to say, because it was, and it was beautiful, and we miss it. Maybe we build museums on Mars, a room full of Earth artifacts, a coffee mug from Melbourne, a pair of flip-flops, a slice of pizza sealed in resin, someone's carefully preserved pet rock. Little things that meant nothing at the time, and everything now. Maybe we create artificial beaches, with real sand but holographic waves, and kids splash in them, laughing, unaware that their laughter is echoing inside a pressure-sealed concrete bubble engineered to withstand minor meteors. But even then, even in our space cities, the question remains, how long could we last? Because the universe doesn't play favourites. Solar flares, gamma-ray bursts, rogue black holes, all real, all potentially game-ending. We like to think we're tough, but our entire species is clinging to the skin of one planet with no backups. We are, cosmically speaking, an extremely sophisticated fungus growing on a moist rock. And yet, here you are, watching this, listening, imagining, which means you care. So let's look at time. How long could humans survive on Mars? With current tech? Maybe a few decades. A small colony. Fragile? A single supply chain error away from disaster. But with effort, century hours. With luck, millennia. With miracles we spread to other moons out of the stars, each one harder than the last. Each one requiring more patience, more innovation, more willingness to do really weird things to plants in the name of survival. And eventually we go post-biological. Yeah, I said it. We digitize ourselves, upload consciousness into machines, let go of meat entirely. No more skeletons to break, lungs to wheeze, or hair to shed into the communal bathroom filter. You become data, floating through space, a spark of awareness in a synthetic shell. You don't age, you don't breathe, you just exist. And maybe you settle on a rocky moon orbiting a gas giant 200 light years away. You build a city, not out of bricks or steel, but of logic gates and glowing lines of code. You're still human, kind of, sort of. But Earth? That was lifetimes ago. And one night, if night even still means anything, you pause, you slow your processing speed, and you remember. You remember the wind, real wind, that moved your hair and made leaves dance. You remember laughter in the rain, and the taste of strawberries, and stepping barefoot onto warm sand. And for a moment, you miss it. A planet, a place, a feeling. That's the irony of space colonization. You can survive, you can thrive, but you will always be carrying ghosts. The ghost of Earth, the ghost of gravity, the ghost of your grandmother's cooking. And that's okay, because survival isn't about forgetting where you came from. It's about remembering it clearly enough to recreate something better. Now let's come back to you. You're not a digital consciousness yet. You're just lying there, warm, safe, maybe a little sleepy, hopefully a lot sleepy. And as you drift, let your mind wander across time. You've been human, Martian, cyborg, vaporized, reconstructed, rained on by diamonds, frozen on Pluto, roasted on Venus. And through all of it, some part of you endured, a stubborn, squishy spark that refused to give up. That's kind of beautiful, isn't it? So breathe in, deeply, and exhale. You're drifting through space now. Not running, not fighting, just floating. The stars aren't cold, they're comforting. Old friends, shining from impossible distances. You've got time, and dreams, and maybe, just maybe, a few potatoes growing in the back. Okay, you're lying in your sleep pod, or maybe just in bed on Earth, imagining stars like pinholes in an infinite ceiling. But what if I told you that time itself isn't as constant as you think? Out in space, time bends, it stretches, it warps. And if that sounds like the setup to a pretentious TED talk, I promise you, it's also terrifying and beautiful in equal measure. Let's start simple. On Earth, we take time for granted. Seconds become minutes, minutes become hours. Then bills are due, and birthdays happen, and suddenly you're Googling how to make soup in a mug at 3 a.m. But in space, not so fast. Literally, time moves slower the faster you go. It also moves slower the closer you are to a source of gravity. That's not sci-fi, that's relativity. Einstein figured that out over a century ago, and the universe still hasn't gotten over it. If you spent a year orbiting a black hole, you might only age a year, while 10 years pass for your friends back home. So you go to space and come back younger. Congratulations. You're now a walking paradox and probably have some explaining to do in your group chats. Even the astronauts aboard the International Space Station experience this very slightly. They age a tiny bit slower than people on Earth. We're talking milliseconds, not Marvel-level plot twists. But still, it's real. Now imagine you're on a planet like Proxima b, orbiting close to a red dwarf star. Red dwarfs are small, but they're dense. Their gravity affects time more than our sun does. If you lived near one, your perception of time would be different. Not enough to notice day to day, but over decades, you'd be off sync with Earth. Your twin back home would age slightly faster. You'd both look at each other and say, "You look tired," but only one of you would mean it. And that's just gravity. Let's add speed. Say you're on a generation ship, a big rotating cylinder hurtling through space at 90% the speed of light. Which, let's face it, is already a questionable lifestyle choice. But let's say you're there, sipping rehydrated tea and watching reruns of The Office, Intergalactic Edition. From your perspective, everything feels normal. You live your life, you do your chores, you regret your haircut. But back on Earth, time is sprinting ahead. A year for you might be 10 years for them. You're skipping ahead in time, like hitting fast forward on the universe. You're not immortal. just lagged. Now imagine the implications. You leave Earth at 25, you return at 45, but Earth is 200 years older. Your hometown is a museum. Your favourite band is now classical music. Your memes are ancient artefacts, studied by bored teenagers with facial recognition implants. Time travel? Kind of, but with paperwork. And it doesn't stop there. Black holes? Oh boy. Get too close to a black hole and time slows dramatically. The closer you are to the event horizon, the boundary where not even light can escape, the slower time moves. To an outside observer, you'd appear frozen, stuck in time, forever hovering near the edge. To you, time feels normal, except you can't escape. You're moving toward the point of no return, at a speed that feels normal, but only to you. It's like falling through honey while the rest of the universe sprints past. That's the horror of time dilation. Not that it kills you, but that it leaves you behind. Still, there's something poetic about it. Time becomes less of a ticking clock and more of a suggestion, a flexible thread. And you're now aware of every second, every blink, every breath. And that awareness, it's grounding. You don't take time for granted when you realise how fragile it is. So let's go back to you, lying in your bed, listening to this, letting your breath slow. Each inhale a galaxy forming, each exhale a star collapsing. You're not in a rush. Let the minutes stretch, let the seconds melt. Right now there is no past or future. Just this, a quiet moment, a story, a sense of awe. And as you close your eyes, imagine you're on that generation ship, a small cabin, a soft hum in the walls. You're wrapped in a blanket made of recycled fabrics and questionable style choices. The stars blur outside your window, like streaks of light across a black canvas. You're heading toward a new world. And back home, time marches on. But here you're safe. Here you are timeless. You're still floating, still calm, somewhere between consciousness and sleep. And above you, as always, are the stars. But here's a gentle, mind-bending truth. Every single star you've ever seen is a time machine. Not literally. No DeLorean, no flux capacitor. Just light travelling across space at 300,000 kilometers per second, taking years or even centuries to reach your eyes. You are not looking at the stars as they are. You're looking at them as they were. Let's say you're staring at Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky. That light left the star about 8.6 years ago, which means if Sirius suddenly exploded tonight, you'd still see it shining peacefully for over 8 more years, completely unaware that the party ended long ago. Look at Betelgeuse. That reddish one in Orion's shoulder, about 600 light-years away. Its light began its journey before Galileo looked through his first telescope, before the first Europeans set foot in Australia, before your great-great-great everyone was born. You're seeing Betelgeuse in the 1400s, that's right. You're literally stargazing into the Middle Ages. And honestly, if that doesn't make your brain do a sleepy little somersault, I don't know what will. Now let's zoom out. The Andromeda Galaxy, that faint smudge you can barely see on a clear night, that light left it 2.5 million years ago. Before modern humans existed, before language, before we figured out what a fire was. You're seeing photons that began their journey when we were just vaguely clever apes trying not to get eaten by saber-toothed cats. Which means when you look up at the night sky, you're not just looking at stars, you're looking at history, frozen light, ancient messages, silent stories flickering through the black. And here's the weird part. The reverse is also true. Right now, light from you is travelling outward. The photons bouncing off your body, your house, your planet are flying into space, forever. Most of them will never hit anything. They'll just keep going, for billions of years. So somewhere, your image, your snapshot, is racing into the void. And if some alien civilization had a big enough telescope, and they looked at Earth, they might be seeing dinosaurs right now. Or mammoths. Or the Beatles. Or you, brushing your teeth badly in the reflection of your phone screen. Time in the universe is not a straight line. It's more like a shimmering puddle that someone stepped in. Messy, warped, full of echoes. And that brings us to an odd little comfort. You never really disappear in the universe. Your light, your warmth, your presence, it echoes. Faintly, yes, but forever. You've left fingerprints in the cosmos, not the kind that get you arrested, the kind that say I was here. A blink of existence in a sky full of stories. Now imagine this. You're standing on the surface of an alien planet. The sky above is vast and strange. 2 moons, or none. A faint purplish sun setting over a field of silver grass that waves with every passing breeze. And there, just over the horizon, Earth. A tiny pale dot. Maybe it's visible to the eye, maybe not. But it's there. Home, billions of kilometres away. And yet still part of you. You sit down. Let your fingers trace the dusty alien soil. You look up at the stars, and every single one of them is telling you a story from the past. It's quiet. So quiet you can hear your own heartbeat echo in your suit. You realise something. The farther you travel, the more time bends and stretches, the more the universe feels less like a place and more like a memory. A beautiful, massive, ancient memory, one you're slowly becoming part of. So you lie back, close your eyes, and let the starlight wash over you. Not the new starlight, the old kind, the slow kind. The kind that's been on a journey for thousands of years just to arrive here. Just to arrive now. You're part of that. You're a witness, a passenger, a dreamer floating through a sky full of ghosts, and somehow that's not scary. It's comforting, because if the stars can linger, so can you. Don't worry, we're not going to fall in. Not yet. For now, you're just floating at a safe-ish distance, suspended in nothing. A black sphere ahead of you, absolutely massive. And somehow invisible. You can't see the black hole itself, only the space around it, bending like melted glass. It doesn't shine, it doesn't glow, it devours. And surrounding it is the accretion disk, a violent swirling halo of gas and dust spinning at near light speed, heated to millions of degrees. If space had traffic laws, this place would be a permanent crime scene. But you're calm. Because in this strange place, even time takes a break. This is what scientists call the ultimate gravitational beast. A black hole's gravity is so strong, nothing, not light, not hope, not even that one confident guy from high school, can escape it. Get too close, and the escape velocity exceeds the speed of light. And since nothing can go faster than that, falling in becomes permanent. You're looking at the event horizon, the point of no return. From this distance, it just looks like a dark edge. But if you were to approach it, time for you would slow down. Dramatically. To someone watching from far away, it would look like you're moving in slow motion, forever frozen just before the edge. To you, everything would seem normal. At first. But the moment you cross that invisible line, reality changes. Let's pretend, for the sake of bedtime horror, that you fall in. First comes the spaghettification. That's the real scientific word, by the way. It means your body is stretched vertically and compressed horizontally. Your feet are pulled harder than your head, and eventually you're torn into long, thin strands of atoms. Like pasta, but more existential. But there's a twist. If the black hole is large enough, like supermassive, at the centre of a galaxy, that stretching doesn't happen right away. You could fall through the event horizon without feeling a thing. No warning, no sensation. You just cross a line in space where the outside world disappears forever. You're now inside, and no one can follow. What's in there, we don't know. Not in a mysterious, we haven't studied it yet kind of way, in a laws of physics just stopped working kind of way. Some say it's a singularity, a point of infinite density and zero volume, where matter is crushed into something beyond comprehension. Other theories suggest it's a bridge, a wormhole, a connection to another universe, another time. Maybe even a white hole, the theoretical opposite, where things explode out instead of getting sucked in. Maybe it's all of those, or maybe it's just the end. You wouldn't know, because once you cross the horizon, all paths lead inward. There's no escape. Not even information can get out. That means, from the outside, we can't ever know what happened to you. Your story, as far as the universe is concerned, just stops. But here's a gentler way to look at it. Black holes don't destroy information. At least, probably not. There's a theory called Hawking radiation, proposed by Stephen Hawking, the guy who looked at the universe and said, "Yeah, let's make this way more complicated." He suggested that black holes slowly evaporate, leaking tiny amounts of energy over time, and maybe, just maybe, the information that fell in gets encoded in that radiation. Like cosmic breadcrumbs, spread thin across eons. If that's true, then no story is ever truly lost. Even if you fell into a black hole, some part of you remains. Not your body, not your consciousness, but a whisper, a trace, a ripple on the fabric of space-time, the ultimate cosmic footprint. And let's not forget, black holes aren't just destroyers, they're creators too. At the centre of almost every galaxy, including our own, sits a supermassive black hole, billions of times the mass of our sun. And it doesn't just sit there. It anchors us, holds the galaxy together like a gravitational core. No black hole, no galaxy, no stars, no you. In a very weird way, black holes made life possible. The most terrifying objects in the universe are also why you exist. Kind of makes you want to send them a thank you card, but maybe not in person. So drift now. You're floating just outside the event horizon. The stars behind you are warped into rings of light. The black hole is silent, still, patient. Your heart slows. Your thoughts stretch out, pulled thin like light across curved space. And for once, there's no noise, no pressure, no expectations. You're part of something ancient, something vast, something that reminds you that even in the darkest place imaginable, there's still beauty, still mystery, still peace. Sleep easy, friend. Not just a void, the void. Welcome to the Botese Void, also known as the Great Nothing. Which sounds dramatic because it is. This region of space is enormous, about 330 million light-years across. That is not a typo. It is one of the largest known voids in the universe, an empty sphere where almost no galaxies exist, no stars, no planets, just cold, black emptiness. A cavern in the fabric of the cosmos. If the universe is a sponge full of galaxies, the Botese Void is a bubble where the sponge forgot to show up. And if that sounds unsettling, it should. If you were somehow placed right in the centre of the Botese Void, you would be surrounded by almost nothing. There are a few galaxies here and there, but compared to anywhere else in the universe, it is practically silent. You could turn in every direction and see nothing but blackness. It is the closest thing to total cosmic solitude, and here is the really fun part. If you looked up from Earth toward that part of the sky, you would not even notice, because it is too big, too far, too quiet. The void does not call attention to itself. It just exists. Some scientists have joked that if aliens ever wanted to hide, the Botese Void would be the perfect place. No stars to light their cities, no nearby galaxies to ask questions, no cosmic neighbours knocking on the door with a telescope and a list of awkward questions. It is so empty that it almost feels intentional, which of course sparks the imagination. What if the void was not always empty? What if something made it that way? A long time ago, perhaps a series of galaxies collided, or a cosmic event so violent occurred that it pushed everything out, leaving a yawning gap in its wake. Or maybe it is just a natural phenomenon, a statistical hiccup in an otherwise crowded universe. But whatever the reason, the result is the same, an ocean of silence. Now imagine you are floating there, in the centre of the void. There is no light, no warmth, just you, your suit, and the infinite cold. At first it feels scary, but slowly it becomes something else. Peaceful. There is no rush, no gravity tugging at you, no noise. You are weightless, free, suspended in nothing. And for the first time your thoughts slow down. They stop bouncing around. Out here they have nowhere to go, so they settle. You settle. You are not worried about emails, you are not thinking about groceries, you are not scrolling. You are simply being, a single human soul, floating in one of the loneliest corners of the cosmos. And yet, it does not feel lonely. It feels honest. The universe is showing you one of its quietest truths, that even in its emptiest places, there is meaning. Stillness has a story too. Now, back on Earth, people are always filling silence. Music, notifications, conversation, footstep, noise machines designed to drown out other noise. But the void offers no distractions, only truth. And that truth? You are small, but not insignificant. Because the very act of being aware of the void means something. The fact that you can even contemplate this place means you have already escaped it. Your mind is filled with memories, stories, laughter, losses, love, things the void has never known. You are not empty, you are overflowing. So lie still. Let yourself feel that weightlessness. Picture the dark stretching out in every direction. A velvet curtain with no wrinkles, no stars. Only you. Only now. Only breath. You are a candle in the void. Small, warm, flickering softly. And that is enough. When you are ready, we will drift again. Toward light. Toward stories. Toward other strange wonders. But for now, rest. Let the silence cradle you. Let the emptiness wrap around you like the softest blanket in the universe. Let yourself dissolve into the quiet. Close your eyes and picture it. A planet, suspended in space. Not special, not loud, just a marble of blue and green and white, spinning quietly around a yellow star. There is no music playing, no dramatic narration, just clouds moving over continents. Oceans curling and breaking on shores, trees breathing slowly in forests that have never seen human feet. This is Earth as it was before. Before cities, before names, before somebody decided to call this place home. A single drop of possibility in a black ocean of silence. The air is clean. Not clean like you clean your kitchen. Clean like it has never held a single car exhaust. Not once. The sky is so clear it looks freshly invented. There are no satellites, no planes, no stray balloons drifting into the atmosphere. Only weather, only wind, only the hum of a planet doing what it does best. Existing. And you are not there. Not yet, no one is. The animals move without fear. Birds rise and fall like punctuation in a novel without readers. Wolves howl into valleys where no one ever responds. Rain falls and nobody complains about the timing. Time passes, slowly, without pressure. No one is checking the clock. No one is saying just 5 more minutes. The sun rises, the sun sets, and the earth turns. Now imagine time fast forwarding. Just a little. Plants start to crawl inland. Ice ages come and go like sighs. Volcanoes write love letters in magma across the surface. The oceans swell and recede. The continents drift apart like old friends who just needed space. And then one day consciousness stirs. Not yours. Not yet. But something begins to look up at the stars and wonder. Small creatures, curious, fragile, trying to survive. They do not know they are part of something bigger. Not yet. They are too busy eating berries and avoiding things with teeth. But slowly they evolve. Into you, and everything changes. Now, Earth is no longer alone. It has company. It has curiosity. It has problems. It has people who talk over each other in meetings and buy things they don't need and forget to charge their phones and wonder if they're doing life correctly. It has people who fall in love and lose that love and somehow keep going. People who look at sunsets and whisper wow without knowing why. People who make coffee and forget they made coffee and make more coffee. Earth is messier now, but also more beautiful because it feels. And maybe that is worth the noise. Now pause. Imagine Earth in the future. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Far, far ahead. When the oceans have changed shape. When cities are buried or grown over. When someone else, something else, walks where you once walked and wonders what you were like. They find your writings, your photos, your voice maybe. Trapped in digital archives and nobody quite knows how to open. They piece you together like a puzzle with missing edges, and they wonder what you feared, what you dreamed, what you meant when you said, "I'm fine," but weren't. You're gone, but not forgotten. Because Earth remembers everything. Every footprint, every story, every laugh that echoed into a canyon. You were part of this place, and this place will carry that part forward. So now you are drifting again, but this time not into the void. You are orbiting Earth, watching clouds move, watching night fall, watching the lights of cities blink softly like the heartbeat of something alive. And beneath all that, a quiet hum, the sound of home. You do not need to do anything right now. You do not need to change the world. You just need to be part of it. You already are. You are floating again. The earth is behind you. Small now. Beautiful. A perfect swirl of blue and white and green. But ahead of you there is only space. And in that space, a question. Are we alone? It is a simple question. One that has haunted humans for as long as we have looked up and wondered why the stars do not talk back. There are over 200 billion stars in our galaxy. Many of them have planets. Many of those planets may be in the habitable zone. Not too hot, not too cold. Just right for liquid water and long walks and bad poetry. Even if only a tiny fraction of those planets developed life, the universe should be humming with it. But it is not. At least not that we can hear. This is called the Fermi paradox. The idea that the universe is vast, old, and full of stars, yet eerily silent. It is like walking into a library the size of a planet and finding every book is blank. Where is everyone? Maybe they are out there, but too far away. Light takes time to travel. Even a message sent at the speed of light would take years, decades, centuries to reach us. And we've only been listening for a few decades. Like showing up late to a party and wondering why no one is dancing. Maybe they exist in forms we cannot understand. Not carbon-based, not breathing air. Maybe they live in plasma clouds or within neutron stars, or inside dimensions we have not discovered. To them, we might be invisible, or irrelevant, or boring. Maybe we are early. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago. Maybe life is just beginning to wake up across the cosmos. We are the first ones to stand, to stretch, to shout across the void. We are the morning whisper in a universe still sleeping. Or maybe we are late. Maybe civilizations rose and fell while we were still crawling out of the ocean. Maybe their ruins drift in space. Silent, cold, waiting. And maybe we will join them. Or maybe, just maybe, they are here, hiding, watching, waiting for us to stop fighting with ourselves long enough to say hello properly. But let's imagine something kinder. Let's say you find them. One day, drifting through space, you approach a planet that feels familiar. It is not Earth, but it has oceans, and wind, and light. You land. And someone is waiting, not human, not alien in the way movies imagine. Just different. They do not speak your language. They do not need to. Because when they look at you, they understand that you are alone, that you are curious, that you are tired of shouting into the dark and hearing nothing echo back. And they do not fear you. They welcome you. Because they too wondered if they were alone. They too stared at their stars and asked, is there someone else out there making bad decisions and falling in love and forgetting where they put their keys? And now you are here, proof that the universe is not silent, it just needed time. So you sit together. You share stories, or songs, or just silence. Because sometimes silence shared is more powerful than 1,000 words. And in that moment, under that alien sky, you realise something simple. We were never meant to be alone. We just needed to look long enough, far enough, gently enough. So let yourself drift now. Let the stars carry you. Let the question echo, but not as fear, as comfort. Because whether we find others tomorrow or in a million years, we are already part of something vast, something beautiful, something alive. You're floating above Earth again, this time closer. You can see the curve of the planet, soft and blue, clouds drifting lazily over oceans, city lights pulsing quietly on the dark side. You've seen so many strange and wonderful places. Planets that boil, planets that freeze, moons that shoot geysers into space, ancient stars whispering light across billions of years. And yet this is the one place that feels like home. Earth, fragile, flawed, loud, alive. You remember its gravity now, how it pulls. Not just your body, but your soul. You remember the weight of keys in your hand, the smell of rain on concrete, the way wind sounds when it moves through trees that were already old when you were born. You remember people, not just the ones who loved you, but the ones who didn't, the ones who shaped you anyway. You remember moments that made you laugh so hard you forgot how sadness worked. You remember moments that hurt more than silence. All of them. Proof that you were here, that you felt something. You remember walking at night, looking up, wondering if someone was doing the same thing on some distant planet. Now you know. Maybe they were. Maybe they are. But here, on this little marble, life found a way to build stories out of molecules. And you are one of them. A story. Not perfect, but vivid. You may not have visited Mars, or dived into the methane lakes of Titan, or stared down a black hole, but you lived. You tried. You searched. You wondered. And in doing so, you joined the oldest tradition in the universe. Curiosity, the desire to know what is out there and what is in here. So as you float gently back toward the surface, think of every planet you visited, every place you couldn't survive, and every moment you did. You outlived the vacuum of space, the glass storms, the lava worlds, the crushing gravity, the nothingness. You're still here, listening, breathing, existing in this quiet moment between sleep and wakefulness. Your bed feels like gravity now, soft, familiar, pulling you back home. The universe will still be there tomorrow. The stars will still shine. The planets will still spin. But for now, they can wait. You've earned your rest. Let your eyes close. Let your breath slow. Let your body sink. You are safe. You are small. And you are part of something infinitely large and impossibly beautiful. Good night, and dream well.